wow, after the first couple scenes of this movie, I just felt like something bad was gonna happen in every single scene to every character. I mean, Matt Damon was in the middle of a kitchen. I felt like a car was just gonna drive through, like, should be like...
Wait a minute. This isn't where I parked my house. Hey, is that Matt Damon? Hey, Matt Damon.
Okay, so Hereafter. Now, over the past couple of years, I've really liked Clint Eastwood's directorial work. Changeling was decent, Gran Torino I absolutely love, and Invictus was overall a good movie. But I was very excited for Hereafter. I liked the trailer, and of course, I love the collaboration between Eastwood and Damon. But the movie was getting mixed reviews, and there's people like one of my most respected critics, Roger Ebert, absolutely loved it, gave it 4 stars. Some other people were slamming it. So I wasn't sure how to feel about this movie. So I went in, with 50-50 expectations. I wasn't expecting to love it, but I wasn't expecting to hate it either. And I think that's what constituted to my overall enjoyment of this movie. I think it's just going to wind up being one of those love-hate movies. You're either really going to like it or you're just really not. And I think you're going to have at least some little inkling of which one that's going to be before you even go in. Hereafter is a flawed film. It just is. You can tell that when watching it. You will watch it and you'll find these little things. But they're just not really all that bothersome because I noticed them, I saw them on screen, and I was like, oh yeah, that's not so good. But the fact is, I just really didn't care and continued watching the movie and liked it. Now, one of the things that I think is going to turn people off about this movie is the fact that it's kind of slow, but I can't count that as a flaw. I really don't see it as one because it's really dependent on the specific viewer. I myself really never mind slow pacing unless it makes 5 minutes seem like an hour. That's ridiculous, but in this movie, I just can't picture it really being fast-paced because they need all this time to develop all these different characters. But in the same sense as where the development excuse prevents the slow pacing from really being a flaw, it kind of screws itself over because for a portion of the characters are really underdeveloped. And I'm saying that you have all this time, you should utilize more of it to develop some of these characters. There's also one instance where there's a story with a character that goes absolutely nowhere. They started up, it's going fine, but it is so blatantly obvious that it just goes nowhere that as soon as you see this movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Because it cuts off halfway through the movie and it's almost never mentioned again. And that really annoyed me. That was one of the flaws that just really annoyed me. There's other things like some corny dialogue and they had lack of development, but those really didn't bother me much and didn't detract from my otherwise enjoyment of the movie. I like how it adds a human experience to the supernatural nature, and then it asks the question of what happens after we die, while also deals with how people cope with other people's deaths who are close to them, and those two complement each other very nicely. Scenes where the vision's happening are absolutely stunning. Then the disaster scenes are brilliantly directed with amazing special effects. And the opening scene with the tsunami just takes your breath away. It's both almost disturbing at times, but so realistic. And the entire time I was just like, take that, 2012! But it really just pulls you right into the movie. It's a sincere, genuine, and sentimental movie with phenomenal performances. Any movie where there's intertwining storylines, there's one that I kind of prefer over the others. In this case, it was the little boy story. I forget his name, but honestly, he himself was just fantastic. But his whole story, there was just so much sympathy involved with that and his character. Not to be specific, but some of his issues struck kind of close to home, so that might have been part of it. But overall, I loved that part of the story. It was just so believable, and that just worked so well. I know a lot of people probably complain about the fact that it proposes a lot of questions, but it doesn't answer any of them. But I think that's also just kind of part of the point of the movie. That, we have all these questions about the afterlife, but we're never going to really be able to have them answered until we experience it for ourselves. Even Matt Damon, whose character can communicate with people who are dead, doesn't know pretty much anything about that world. And that, I think, is just part of the main moral of this movie, that we should just enjoy life for what it is and continue living and stop thinking about, what's going to happen after we die, because we'll be there sometime and, we can't do anything to prevent that. And there's some times where I think it could have had, and there are times where I think it could have had a better sense of humor about some of the things it was approaching. There were some scenes where they were trying to communicate with the dead, they're going to different people. One of the guys was just all like, alright, that'll be $300. I don't know how much of a recommendation I can give it, because it's really going to be circumstantial. I mean, if you think by this review, if it appeals to you, then go see it. If it doesn't, then don't. It's just that simple. I'll give this movie an 8 out of 10, but it probably will be one of those movies where my opinion on the movie just kind of changes over time or with repeated viewings. But yeah, it's a good movie. It's a well-made movie with some flaws, and it's just an enjoyable experience. It's not for everybody, but yeah, if you liked this review, please subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow with my review of Paranormal Activity Dose. Damn, this movie really knows how to suck the funny out of some situations. Because I was in the theater, I was enjoying the movie, and there's this guy, and I think we've all experienced this situation. He gets up, bravely with his popcorn and drink. He looks down both aisles, completely full. You go one way, you're screwed. You go another way, you're still screwed. So he makes a choice for the right. He's slowly stepping over. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. All right. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm just getting refills for my snacks. And then he sees the finish line, so he darts for it, and I and the rest of the theater is just cracking up, just hysterically laughing, and then instantly on the screen people are dying, and it's like, oh, I don't want to laugh anymore. And then when he came back with his full box of treats, he falls again, and I'm like, pain and suffering, straight face, death, death.